Roger Penske once said, the harder you work, the luckier you get. But as we get ready to begin season 13, will anyone actually be looking for luck to be a part of their racing at all? We need superstition anyways. Let's kick off a brand new season of racing as we get ready to watch round one of the Autobahn Sportscar Challenge. And you'll see it all live here on ftf.gg. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes is our director, Zach Johnson. And Joey, we start things off as we always do with Autobahn here at Daytona.
The Daytona Roval, the road course through the super speedway, 12 turns, 3.5 miles in length, and it's where Autobahn kicks off every season. It's great to be back here. I can't wait to see what everything is going to be in terms of racing, because we don't just have the couple of classes anymore. We've got lots of different cars on track this year.
Yeah, lots of cars in general on track, which let's go through that starting grid, because we have 4 different classes as Paul Darling will start on the pole with David Williams starting next to him. Kevin Binkley will be in 3rd, and David Schutt will be 4th. Dominic Dornenberg will start P5, followed by Paul Gibson in 6th. Row 4 sees Billy Smith flanked by Mo Islam. Then in row 5, it's Eric Thomas and Nathan Dowd. Then you've got Joshua Lane in the 11th spot, followed by Jimbo Pfeiffer. Dawson Brock is here to race in number 13th position here in season 13. Leif Peterson starts 14th, and Eddie Layton, the last of our GTP field. What about the LMP2s, Joey?
Jeffrey Ooms is going to be on pole in that LMP2 field in his number 19. Carter Kundinger, second in class there. Thomas Fisher is going to be starting 3rd in LMP2, 18th overall. Alex Caruso there, 19th overall. Adam Satterfield with a top 5 LMP2 qualifying effort. Robert Cast there in 6th. Robert Tinsey, 7th in class. Corey Ensing, 8th in class. Bradley Haley, 9th. Andrew Lunsford, 10th. Vance Bow, 11th in LMP2. Zach Ginn, 12th. Paul Slavonic, 13th. Matt Brewer lined up 14th in LMP2, and 3 more here. Brian Bennett, Christopher Pies, and Joshua Wolf rounding out that second of the prototype classes.
A bit surprising to see Pies that far down. Young Park, though, going to be on the pole for the GTDs. This is both GTD and GTD-AM, by the way. Wasilewski will be starting in 2nd with Michael Marlowe in 3rd. Then you've got Robert Rattray in the 4th position, but on the pole for the GT-AMs. Then it is Ryan Robertson in 5th and Justin Rector 6th, followed by Floyd Kerr in 7th. Franco Margarella starts 8th, as Luke Schmidt will be 9th and Cameron Bidwell in 10th. Ed Eisenring starts in the 11th position. He'll be flanked by Mark Kodrowski. You've got Tom Hammond starting 13th and Shane Hunter 14th. William Brennan, P15 for him, followed by Nathan Deering. James Stacy starts 17th and Dale Green in 18th. Then in the 10th row, Jason Iverson has Sheldon Rosenbaum to his outside. Dean Kerr starts 21st. You've got Chris Sherburne in 22nd, Sean Reese 23rd, Ross Booth 24th, Trent Brown 25th, and Matthew Gosh starting 26th, with 58 cars racing here today for the season opener. And Joey, This season opener is always a learning time, considering I believe I heard there were 15 rookies to the series racing. This is going to be a steep learning curve.
Well, not just 15 rookies, but you said it. There's over 50 cars, almost 60 cars on the racetrack here, so it is going to be a busy place. Not only that, but Autobahn always starts off with that 90-minute enduro. Not all of them are this long, so be prepared for a little bit of a hectic chaos out there, but you gotta survive the whole night.
Exactly. This will be a split start. Here you see the GTP field, then it'll be the LMP2s, and the combined GT field will all take off in their own green. Here we go. Pace car is in. Control is over to Darling, and he goes. Green flag is out for the first round of season 13 and the Autobahn Sports Car Challenge, and down into turn 1. How is Darling going to fare? It looks pretty darn good, as it's single file pretty much all behind him, and they politely work their way through turn 1. Let's go to the LMP2s.
Right now, it's Jeffrey Ooms that gets the nice start on the outside. Carter Kundinger, his teammate's going to lead him into turn number 1. It's side by side. They're right behind him for what is the third place between Alex Caruso and Thomas Fisher, but they mainly stream out to single file through the S's as well.
Looks like one of our GTPs was off there in the International Horseshoe, but now the GTs take the green flag, and Young Park got a very good start over everybody else is behind him. The driver's going 3 wide into the first turn. Look like they're going to get out the other side, and I see no accidents. That is a good sign that we got them all through turn 1 safely.
And really looking through this entire field as the GT3 cars kind of have to go through any messes that are left behind from the 2 prototype classes. One car spun around in the first horseshoe here, not surprising, but doesn't look too much damage for Robert Rattray in the number 33 Porsche.
Yeah, so many manufacturers taking part in this, and Porsche does have a car both in the GTPs and the GTs, but this Porsche is going to be going straight to the back. As up at the front, it's a caddy leading. David Williams ahead of Kevin Binkley currently, but about by a quarter of a second. I'm expecting this to be the case for much of the night, seeing these sort of slipstream trains start to form, Joey.
The other thing that I'm noticing is that we've got a whole bunch of Cadillacs here in this GTP class. Only one Porsche. I see 2 Porsches and maybe 1 Acura. So we're going to have to see how they kind of balance themselves out. I've heard that this Cadillac probably has the best raw pace, but the Porsche is just incredibly consistent over the long run.
We'll see. It certainly looks like the Caddy is the most popular there in this GTP. This is the first time the GTPs get to race here in the Autobahn Sportscar Challenge. So this has certainly been a highly sought after class, since this series is very based on the real world IMSA series. And out onto the oval once again, Williams continues to kind of lead this train over Binkley and Schutt by a healthy enough margin that he doesn't look under threat right now. It is closer in the LMP2 lead, though. Jeffrey Ooms and Kundinger are separated by the smallest of margins.
You called it, and their teammates. The cars are painted the same, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Jeffrey Ooms and Carter Kundinger kind of continue to work together out there. They've already pulled about a 1-second gap over that third-place car, which is the 414 of Alex Caruso back there. So wouldn't be surprised to see these 2 team cars work together, probably fuel save a little bit in the case of Carter Kundinger. Remember, we do have to do pit stops tonight.
And for our viewers not familiar, such an interesting team battle that they have in this series, Joey. Essentially, the teammates have one in each of the classes out there, competing to try and contribute points for the team's championship. So you really need a diverse skill set in your group.
And in real-world motorsports, we think of teams being in the same class, but you're right, Joe. Here in Autobahn, it works a little bit differently. So even though these 2 cars are competing within the same team, they have multiple team entries. You basically have 1 GTP car, 1 LMP2 car, and then a GT3 plus a GT3 AM. That's your 4-car team, just 1 in each class. It's all about the combined points, your team effort throughout the season.
Also, I want to note that Mark Kudrowski is now your lead in the GT AM category. He's 7th out of all the GT cars right now. So he is doing a good job moving himself up, gained 5 positions at the beginning of this one. There you can see on the left-hand side on your tower, you can keep track of all the different classes, or at least the top of them for now. But down and across the line, this orange and black number 35. Trying to keep ahead of Ed Eisenring, who is fighting him for position. But Ed's, look at that, he's got trouble on his own hands, as that was Nathan Deering attempting to overtake him.
It's going to be busy the entire time in these GT3 cars. They have a bunch of basically balance of performance to make sure that all of the cars are even. You see Porsches, you see BMWs. I even think I see a few Mercedes out there, a Lamborghini as well. So it's kind of pick whichever flavor suits you best. Go out there and tune the car and hope for the best, because they're all pretty even, and I don't think this battle's going to go anywhere for the next hour 25.
Well, it might get shaken up soon, because David Williams is already catching the tail of the GT field. Justin Rector's the first one up, and that is where this series, I think, stands apart from most. The only thing I can think to compare it to is anybody who's ever watched a Camel GT series race on iRacing. This is about as chaotic as that.
And you're right. The fastest cars are about to go through the thickest part of the GT3 field, and not only the thickest part, but remember, usually the back of the field, they're still trying to perfect their racing line, get everything that they can out of the car every single lap. So it's a little daring here in these first few laps.
And I think we had a couple cars off. I don't know if we need a replay, but Corey Ensing and Adam Satterfield down into turn one looks like they made contact and slid off to the outside. And this looks like two teammates also coming together down to the GT cars.
This is another composite team. I believe this is Franco Margarella as well as Luke Schmidt that are having the issue. This is out of that bus stop chicane, I believe newly renamed Le Mans chicane.
And unfortunately, Frank is heading into pit lane because he's got a meatball flag. So does Luke. Normally, they're not allowed to race on the apron, but obviously they had to come straight into pit lane. So they were just trying to stay out of everybody's way there. And I assume that would be allowed for them. But here we go. It is now starting up, and the prototypes are weaving their way through the GTs.
This is where Autobahn really gets chaotic. You got to be careful. You see just the, what do you call it, the conveyor belt of cars in 3.5 miles around Daytona. It is going to be busy. I even see Mario out there. Maybe he's got some green shells to defend himself.
Yeah. It's just so much that's going to be out of your hands here. All you can do is try to protect your car and make wise moves as best you can. You can see with the first time through, so many battles are taking place in the lower classes. So these GTPs are having to just tiptoe their way through the slipstream trains.
And you can really separate your battle depending on how aggressive you are in traffic. However, you got to keep it in check. You can't overstep that limit. You can't bully other cars around. So everybody's on the same playground together. Everybody's got to get along, but how quickly can you move through those slower classes?
Good question. Coming up along the front stretch or through the trioval here. This is Park leading Marlowe right now, but doesn't look like they're fighting too hard. I think they're content to just sit in line. Wasilewski is the one in third behind them. Lost a spot at the start of this race and is just a second or so behind.
Kind of two packs of these two battles of GTD cars. Young Park, Michael Marlowe first and second. Then, like you were saying, Ryan Wasilewski and Floyd Kerr. But look at the GTP cars. They have made their way through the majority of that GT3 field already. Joe, something to notice about these GTP cars, they are crazy fast.
Absolutely. A lot of technology put into them. And certainly the biggest and the best that IMSA has seen in some time. But Dornenberg here, as somebody's off in the International Horseshoe.
That's Paul Darling.
Uh-oh. Usually a very fast driver, so a bit sad to see Darling off and have to collect himself. So he's going to have some work to do from here.
Oh, and that was the middle of a 3-wide incident, I believe, maybe with Joshua Lane, one of the other composite cars. But Joe, you were talking about how busy the traffic is with the GTPs, and it caught out one of the Autobahn regulars with Paul Darling.
Back through the Le Mans chicane once again. Back to our GTPs through here again, having to try and pick their way past. Thankfully, the Daytona Roval does offer them a good chance to try and get easier chances to pass, but the infield is a different story, and that is Schutt overtaking Williams. That was a pass, I think, that just happened on the backstretch.
David Schutt started. Oh, and now we got a late dive from David Williams into turn 3. And look in the mirrors here. It's not just those two that we're talking about, but this is the top 4 battle. Williams, Schutt, Dornenberg, and Binkley here, all battling for the overall lead.
They work their way up towards the kink now. Yeah, that draft is just keeping them all clumped together. And the first time through the GT cars doesn't seem to have broken them apart. If anything, it's brought them back together. They've passed them for the first time fully around. And then they'll eventually catch up to the LMP2s. But they're only 4 seconds slower than them. So it'll be a while before we see them catch the tail of that class.
And these four cars have separated themselves from the fifth place car of Paul Gibson. That's the first Porsche. So these top four cars, they are all Cadillacs running away from everything else right now. And they have a little bit of clean air. Joe, you were mentioning that the straights, they get to breathe a little bit. I think they're looking more forward to this where they can kind of relax before they catch the next group of traffic.
Absolutely. And this is a big relief for them, no doubt. Back of the LMP2s is actually just finishing up the infield section, whereas here we are coming through turn 4 and back to the trioval with David Williams back in front of Schutt once again. And then looking for a pass, that is Kevin Binkley attempting to go by Dornenberg the long way around, but Dominic will fend him off.
Covering some of these GTP cars in other leagues, we have to watch out for the rear brakes on these cars. Remember, they are brake-by-wire, so not necessarily the same feeling as what those LMP2 cars are. And if you don't have your setup dialed in, don't have your brake bias dialed right, it can definitely be an odd feeling if you're not used to it.
Yeah, that's true. Definitely has seemed to be pretty tricky to master from the times I've been watching them and staying hot on the heels of Dornenberg. Kevin Binkley is not letting him relax. So this top 4 battle remains close, but it is separating somewhat while the traffic kind of clumped them back up. It looks like it's becoming 2 pairs.
And remember, it was Jeffrey Ooms and Carter Kundinger running away in LMP2, but as they went through the GT3 field, this 414 of Alex Caruso has caught the back of Carter Kundinger, and really, it's been Carter that's been falling back off of the rear wing of Jeffrey Ooms. So Alex Caruso going up there trying to take away second position.
Yeah, it's already 2 seconds difference as we ride on board with Alex now. And just up ahead, you can see glimpses of Ooms farther up the road, managing to get inside cleanly through the Western Horseshoe, past Matthew Gosh down to the GT cars. And Dale Green is up next as they're hitting the thick of the GTs.
These LMP2 cars, they just don't have the top-end speed that the GTP cars have, and I think the biggest frustration that the drivers deal with is when those GTP cars came out on the iRacing service, they got a big-time power cut, so not only don't they have the top-end speed anymore, but they find themselves lacking the acceleration to kind of squirt around some of these GT3 battles.
Oh, Carter caught the bad end of the deal there. James Stacy was getting passed down into the bus stop and was eventually able to get by, but that definitely checked him up quite a bit. Looks like it didn't allow Caruso a chance to pass. And what have we got here? Is this Bradley Haley? So it looks like he may have had a cut course in the bus stop or possibly a spin. Whoa! And a massive wreck there. One of our GT cars off by the side.
Oh my
So
goodness.
Rattray, who was off earlier, and then somebody else was with him.
I believe it was Robert Tinsey avoiding in the prototype, and yeah, here we get the replay, but Joe, that is such an odd area for that BMW to get. Why is it parked on the track?
It was James Stacy. He had a netcode incident being hit by Robert Cast, and that parked him in the middle of the road, got hit by the Ferrari of Sheldon Rosenbaum, and for some reason he decided to just stop it right in the middle of the racing line. I'm not sure why.
So odd, but you're right. It all starts with James Stacy in that BMW getting tagged, by a prototype coming by. But you're right, Joe. That's just one of the more odd incidents that I've seen.
So looks like, unfortunately, those are going to be some of our first retirees. Luke Schmidt, Franco Margarella, Sheldon Rosenbaum, James Stacy, Robert Rattray, all out of this race. Those are all GT cars as well. Everybody else able to keep going.
Something that's drawing my eye on timing and scoring, and Joe, I can't say I'm surprised. You're probably not surprised either. Ross Booth, after starting back there 24th in class, up 16 positions, already inside the top 10, now moving up to 7th place in that GT3 class.
Doing good stuff there as he's working hard to try and see if he can charge up towards the front runners. Ross Booth usually quite quick. Robertson's the next one up, about 2.3 seconds up the road. Oh, and more of our prototypes off at turn 1, eventually able to find their way back, but somebody's having to wait very, very patiently here.
I believe this is Andrew Lunsford, stopped on the side of the track, and he was the one who actually started all of this chaos. He just got in too deep into turn 1. Joe, watch this FTF replay. Watch this red, white, and blue satellite car. Just too much speed. Around he goes, and then the 3 other prototypes just nowhere to go after.
Wow. So that has put him in a very awkward position, unfortunately. He's able to get the car running, but lost a ton of time. And this is 15 minutes into the race. We still got halfway to go to get through this first stint before the pit stop, before the pit window begins to open, Joey.
You're right. You know, I'm kind of chuckling to myself over here because this is kind of what we expect out of Autobahn. This is one of the reasons why we love Autobahn, is that it is really action all over the place, from the drop of the green flag through the pit stops until the checkered falls.
And back to our GT Pro leaders, Jeffrey Young Park and Michael Marlowe here. And almost a little bit of a look there. Thought he was going to try and attempt to pass, but looks like a defense from Young Park is going to dissuade him for now. Hard to tell if they're actually battling or not, since they're teammates.
There's a lot of these black and green composite racing cars, and I know that for the most part, they love to do practice together. They love to set up sessions together. So I have a feeling, Joe, they are working together. They're all on the radio comms together. So I wouldn't be surprised if they stay line astern.
Yeah, I would think that would make the most sense in this situation. But as they wait patiently for the prototype to go on by, I have to say, I am relatively impressed up to this point. This has been a good start for the first round of Autobahn. Like I said earlier, notoriously the first race of the season is a steep learning curve, and you see a bit of chaos as drivers get adapted to what is just a highly unpredictable sort of atmosphere out here. But the practice races that they had done leading up to this have paid off as we go 3 wide over the banking. This is for 11th in the LMP2s.
Joshua Wolf leading Corey Ensing and Adam Satterfield as that third LMP2 in train as we dive off into this Le Mans bus stop chicane down here and see who can get the best run on the exit. That's really where it's most important. This is the longest of the straightaways, all the way through 3, 4, and the tri-oval before you get on the brakes, pretty much at the end of pit road.
Coming up towards the tri-oval once again, taking just a little bit of a look, but I think he's more, he's going to jump off to the side and allow the trailing car through. So that's about the easiest pass he's probably going to have all night.
Yeah, Adam Satterfield says thank you very much, and now he's actually trying to get around Joshua Wolf, who unfortunately is blinking quite a bit right in front of him, but this battle is about to run up on some GT3 heavy traffic.
Down through the infield as they work their way towards the Western Horseshoe. This is perhaps one of the worst spots to have those blinking issues. Drivers, or for the traffic for that matter, the drivers having to try and make sure that they give each other space through here. And those prototypes especially need to understand the differences and performance between the cars down to the inside of turn 6. And that is not going to make many people happy.
No, and now it's a draft battle up out of 6 through the oval. And look at this, 3 wide as they try to split a GT3 car. But let me tell you, when you try to go all the way up top on the Daytona oval, you're not going to make a pass on the same class of car. It is just a longer distance around. It's not going to work out for you. And actually, just hot in the rearview mirror, it's only going to be a matter of another couple corners. The GTP lead, our overall lead, is definitely starting to heat up. David Schutt has been all over the back wing of David Williams. And here you go. Now we got 3 wide. We got contact for the lead. David Williams gets turned.
So he's going to be able to collect the car down on the flat, on the apron, and get it going. But Dornenberg is by. Binkley is by. Gibson starting to quickly approach. Schutt is able to run away. My goodness. I'd say that the drivers have started to find what is really the limit of is acceptable in this traffic. I kind of surprised that he made such an aggressive move this early.
Well, and David Shutt went up the middle here, 3 wide, and I think if we ride on board with David Shutt, we might be able to get a good view. Does David Williams start to come back down the track to close that middle groove? Or does David Shutt try to insert his car just in a gap that simply doesn't exist?
Let's see. There he sees that opening.
These cars are fast, aren't they?
Yeah, he had to make a split-second decision, and I think he just made the wrong one in the heat of the moment.
Here we'll watch here. Let's see if David Williams, and I think this could probably be a learning incident here. You got choked up in traffic. I think David is trying to keep, well, they're both David. I think that Williams is trying to keep Shutt down on the bottom of the racetrack when he probably could have left a little bit more room, but I'm not the race stewards out here.
No, and that's going to be their job post-race. They don't do in-race penalties for this one. So it'll probably be investigated afterwards if somebody decides to file a protest for that one. But as Williams gets going, he's still in fourth. He's able to keep Gibson behind him, and he's back on his way. Can he catch up? Because he's about 5 seconds behind Shutt. I'd say he's still potentially in the hunt if he's not too damaged right here. But up at the front, this looks to be the battle for second now between Dornenberg and Binkley.
Yeah, it started to heat up a little bit more, and thanks to that contact, it's actually drawn into our overall leader as well, and just trying to weave back and forth around this GT3 traffic as well. Coming up to a big, long train of cars here. After this horseshoe, you got to deal with the fast kink, and these prototypes do have enough grip to go around the outside, but the GT3s have to be aware that you're there, and as you see, Kevin Binkley just getting checked up, costs him a big amount of track position in the battle.
And that gives Dornenberg the wiggle room that he's been needing. He tries to focus forward now. He does have Matt Brewer in front of him. That's an LMP2. I know it's going to be difficult to tell these LMP2s and GTPs apart, but we'll do our best here. And that is going to be interesting because now you've only got a 4-second lap time difference. It's going to be just that little bit harder trying to overtake these very similarly paced different class prototypes.
It's still busy for these overall leaders, as you said, it's just a little bit more difficult around the LMP2 cars. This is your best spot to pass. Now, the cornering speeds, they're relatively the same, so you don't have to worry about being checked up so much by the cars, but if you catch them wrong in a brake zone or you get checked up on the corner exit, that can really stall out your momentum in these faster GTPs.
Watching on board here with with Binkley, I believe, down into turn one. He's going to get blocked up behind Zach Ginn and not have a place to go. And Binkley is going to have to try and duck down to the inside of the International Horseshoe, finally get by, but the damage is done. Dornenberg continues to pull away. And in all of this, they're quickly being approached by David Williams, who has already cut down the gap to the overall lead to 4.3 seconds. He is, I think, got the red mist down a little bit.
And right behind David Williams is a car we haven't talked too much about, is Paul Gibson. That's the first of the other GTP cars. It's in a Porsche tonight, not one of those Cadillacs. So maybe a little bit of that long run consistency starting to come to this number 31 driver, as he's maybe going to tag on to the back of David Williams and hunt down the lead.
Yeah, he's probably going to want to do that here, see if he can just get with him and use that to his advantage as we watch them head towards the bus stop once again. Thankfully, it's thinned out, so no more GT traffic to have to deal with, at least for the time being. And onto the banking once again. But as we said, pit stops expected at right about the 30-and-1 hour mark in this race. So we're within that window probably for both the prototype classes. The GTDs notoriously do go a lot longer and have a much wider window, though they also have to take 2 stops. Who will try and pull the trigger and take an early stop in the prototypes as we go side by side through the S's?
As this is that other battle here between a couple of these composite cars that are still happening. And this is Mo Islam back here involved in this battle. But I think doesn't matter which class you look at, Joe. These black and green composite cars, it seems like they're flooding Autobahn.
Absolutely. And we should point out there are sister teams out there. So some of them might be different versions of that composite team. Well, and of course, in the background, that was Jimbo Pfeiffer there, who briefly found himself close to the barrier. I think he didn't actually hit the tires, but came very near to it.
And you're right. We were talking about those team battles earlier and how it's a little bit different than in real life, how we each have basically a prototype, a GT driver, as well as a third in there that's making up these class consistencies. And I'm looking at composite performance. I'm seeing 1, 2, 3. Is this 4 composite teams? 3 for sure.
Yeah, I'd have to go in and count myself. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 3 or 4. Pfeiffer did hit the wall, unfortunately. I went back and checked, and he clattered into the tires briefly, so hopefully he didn't damage any of the aero bits where you need them here at this track to try and keep it clean through the air on this portion of the lap. Paul Darling, meanwhile, did go by him, who you see on screen right now, up to 10th.
Yeah, I'm seeing 3 composite performance teams, and they've actually taken a little bit of a Top Gun theme this year, Joe. I'm seeing composite performance Iceman, Maverick, and Goose out there. So being an AV nerd, I love seeing that.
I was just going to say that is perfect for you. That'll make it nice and easy for you to keep track as they fly down into the International Horseshoe, for the Western Horseshoe, actually. This is for P7. And coming up and around turn 6, all 3 of them going for the best exit they can get, with Slavonic giving chase on Paul Gibson. But Gibson, that's not for class. That is in the GTPs. But it is between Slavonic and Pies, and he can't do anything to hold him back. Chris is now up 9 spots in his class.
Battle of the Texans right here. Chris Pies and Paul Slavonic both down there in the big old state of Texas. But you're right, Chris Pies has got the hammer down right now, up a bunch of positions from where he started. And looking at his lap times, I mean, he's pretty consistent. He should continue that move up forward.
Chris is usually one that's fighting for wins. So again, I was shocked to see him as far down as he was in qualifying. By the way, I think our leader in the GTPs just pitted. David Schutt is on the lane looking for his stall.
Yes, you are right. He's coming in right now. Make sure to stop in your box. Doesn't slide too far forward. Up on the jacks it goes. That means all 4 tires plus fuel going in the car.
Well, and we have to remember the current rules are that you can take fuel and tires at the same time. So I got to think that it's going to be a slam dunk. You take fuel, you take tires, because I'm pretty sure it doesn't cost you.
I agree, and that's what you have to do, especially if you want to keep the speed. I'm just curious, because after how long he was chasing David Williams to also be the first GTP car down pit road, he must have been hammered down the whole time, no fuel save whatsoever.
Certainly seems like it. I mean, he was pushing the air for a while. Could have gotten a little bit of damage with that incident. Maybe that slowed him down. What happened with Thomas? A couple slow cars. Oh, and he's missing the rear of the car.
Missing the whole rear clip, and I believe this happened in the Western Horseshoe. Not exactly sure what happened. Actually, you know what? I think this was a car spun right in front. I believe it might have been Paul Slavonic that we were just looking at with that LMP2 battle. Spun in the Western Horseshoe and just created a stack up, unfortunately.
Wow. Yeah, man, with this many cars out on track, it's looking like it is difficult to avoid accidents just because there's so much to keep track of, and he's going to cut through the chicane to try and get back to pit lane quicker. Eric Thomas had to tow to pit lane, it looks like, and I think his race is done. Here is the incident. So let's see. Is this Slavonic here getting loose? This is Thomas, actually. Oh, and unfortunately for him, it wasn't the hit into the spun Slavonic. It was the car behind who just didn't get the memo.
And trust me, this is a race-ending incident. I was spotting for some prototypes at the Daytona 24 this year, and this exact problem happened at the Western Horseshoe, and it knocked off the rear wing, and that's a huge fix.
Well, and that's where a lot of the engine bits are too. So I got to think that's going to be bad for the drivetrain and just all important parts. So no wonder he had to call it a day after that one.
I believe that was Corey Ensing that had spun on the outside of turn number 1 that we were getting that second replay of. Thankfully, I didn't see any car contact there, so he'll be able to rejoin the rest of his friends out on the track and continue the race as we watch the number 25 continue to chase down as well as our overall lead up here.
Yep, just kind of swinging around the outside there. Dornenberg, by the way, and Schutt, who have both finished their pit stops, are back out. But Dornenberg is ahead of Schutt now. Had about a 5-second faster pit stop, interestingly.
Remember that contact with David Williams? Do you think that there might have been some damage repairs that David Schutt could have got done? That might have been the 5 seconds.
That's a good point. It's either that. Oh, and Williams missed his pit stall a couple times. Eventually, he figures it out, and he's taking his service. But boy, did he waste a lot of time there trying to wiggle that thing into position. I was going to say it could have been either the damage repair, but we also have 2 pit stops, and the drivers could do a slightly shorter stop on the first one if they wanted to do a short middle stint and get themselves track position. Maybe that's what Dornenberg has done.
I also find it interesting to see these other GTP cars going so much longer than what Dornenberg and Schutt and Williams are going. I kind of have my head scratching over here in terms of the strategy and what's going to be possible.
So it looks like, feeding into your theory that it was damage, most everybody else is running 35, 36, 37-second pit stop. So I think you're right that Schutt did take some repairs, just a little bit of repairs out there. So I think your first guess is correct here.
I think that's smart if he had that damage, because at Daytona, if you have any sort of aerodynamic damage, that is costing you time. Most of your lap around here is spent with your foot to the floor. So if it's costing you time, costing you drag on that top end, you need to get it fixed.
Binkley responds now. He is getting towards his stall as Billy Smith follows. Josh Lane. Looks like Paul Darling will stay out, so his fuel is doing a little bit better than those around him. Anybody else? Mo Islam carries on, but most drivers now have pitted by this stage up in the GTP class. Still haven't seen a lot of them in the LMP2s, and obviously very few of them down in the GTDs have taken service.
This is Paul Darling in the number 55. And remember, Paul had that early spin in this race, and he is one of the fastest, one of the most savvy drivers, especially here in Autobahn. I wouldn't be surprised if when he kind of went on the back foot there, if he started extreme fuel save, maybe try to go off sequence just a little bit, because he's one of these few GTPs that's stretching it further than the rest.
Yeah, and you talked about it earlier about the rookies coming in. You know, there's the flip side. Paul Darling's a veteran in this series. He's used to how the dynamics of this series plays out, as well as the strategy. So I think he is trying to use that a bit to his advantage. By the way, Binkley returned behind Williams, it looks like, and I think Dornenberg should be our effective leader unless somebody has a very strange pit stop amongst Darling, Islam, and Dowd, which I doubt will be the case. So I'm going to place bets on the 913 emerging as our lead car once these last 5 come in.
But Joe, check out the shuffle there in that GTP order. You see the Porsche. That's the number 31 of Paul Gibson. He was able to both jump not only David Williams, but Kevin Binkley in that stop. So maybe keep an eye on that number 31 as the race goes on.
And Team Tactics, Ooms and Kundinger are both in pit lane. That's our LMP2 leaders. Cast will inherit that lead. Pies will continue on as well. So that puts him up to second place already, albeit he'll have to hand some of those back. And Haley into third. So the Comet slips into the podium positions. Ooms going to be the first out naturally. Kundinger after him. They had been separated somewhat since early on in the race. So not too shocked to see that they remain a little bit apart from one another.
You got to love it how these fuel numbers are working out. The GTPs come in first, then we get to cover the LMP2s, and the GT3s are still stretching it out there on the nighttime Daytona racetrack as we watch Jeffrey Ooms feed back into the traffic. It's always a little touchy here. You got the cold tires, you got a pretty cold track. You still have to be careful.
Absolutely. And still being careful around all these GT cars, too. Weaving your way around them. Speaking of the GT cars, here we go. Young Park, our leader in GT Pro, is now down pit lane. Wasilewski follows him in, but Marlowe will continue on. Ross Booth does as well.
We've been waiting for these GT3s to come in. Looks like the Porsches and the BMWs have a very similar fuel number. Got to get all the way down to that pit road speed limit. It's super easy to kind of overshoot your brake marker right before those cones. But Michael Marlowe stays out on the racetrack. Remember, Marlowe was the one that was chasing his teammate in that other Porsche, so able to save +1 lap on the fuel.
So now we're seeing that last one kick off here. 53 minutes left to go. So about 7 minutes past, a few of them making it a little bit farther than that, maybe in the realm of 8 minutes, 9 minutes past the hour. Should get them relatively close, because remember, 45 minutes is halfway here. So we could see drivers just doing a tiny splash and dash in the GT class at the very end of the race.
That's why I've got my eye on a few of these cars. Ross Booth was also able to stay out there an additional lap, so I'm curious, Joe, doing about 2 minutes laps for these GT3 cars. If a car like Ross can maybe stretch it one more past this time by, you're right, he might be able to go one stop.
GTPs have gone way farther than I anticipated as well. Looks like they have a pretty wide window, because Darling, Islam all pitted just now, and that's the last of them, and continue on their way. So this leaves a quite wide margin for them to try and go long as well. How will that play into the decisions of who pits when? I will say, after those first stops being over, Dornenberg is indeed your leader by about 4 seconds over Schutt. Gibson is in third, and Williams still in fourth, but close behind Gibson now. Down in the LMP2s, Ooms is your leader once again, takes that back over. Kundinger back into second, and Caruso back into third. So no changes there in the podium in LMP2s. And in the GTs, Ross Booth is actually taking his pit stop now, so we won't actually get an accurate reading quite yet, but we will in about 30 seconds.
I think it's just going to be a little bit shy to try to stretch it on one more, or on no more stops, basically. I think he's going to have to come in for a splash of fuel near the end of the race. I just don't see it stretching this far.
No, they definitely will need a second stop. There's very few tracks I've ever seen in the history of Autobahn where drivers have managed to one stop these 90-minute races. And it's designed to be that way by the rules. But some have tried, and some have made success, but many have also failed in the process. Looks like all of our GTDs have now pitted for their first stop. So Young Park is back to the lead. Marlowe is in second, and Wasilewski is in third. So a swap between P2 and P3 since the start of the race, but over the pit stops, Marlowe and Wasilewski remain as they were. That's in the GT Pros. And the GT AMs, Kudrowski currently leads 8th overall in that class. And then Ed Eisenring is second, behind him by about 7 seconds. And then you have to go about another 4 to get to Shane Hunter, who's third in that class, 11th overall. Not doing too shabby down in that AM category.
The AM battle is actually pretty close. I think my biggest shocker, though, with this GT3 stuff is when that pit stop cycle happened, it really spread out a lot of these GT3 battles. I'm seeing maybe Cam Bidwell is on the back end of Floyd Kerr back there, but you're right, Mark Kudrowski leading the AM battle in the number 35, and it just seemed that with the pit stop cycles, maybe drivers haven't practiced their in and out laps, or maybe it's been a wide variety, because it's definitely opened up.
Yeah, it has. And as we watch down into turn one once again, down around the outside there, I think that is Williams finally managing to get by Kevin Binkley. Or no, excuse me, he's keeping ahead of Binkley if I'm seeing correctly. So I thought Williams was going to be on the attack on Gibson, and no, it's been the reverse. Has he been held up in traffic?
Yeah, I think so, and you're right. It's definitely closed back in, but Kevin Binkley was able to get around Paul Darling. I think that's what I was seeing really right there, and maybe is trying to stretch it out just a little bit.
Could be. And coming down into turn 6, they've got Ooms, our leader in the LMP2s, who's going to stay low to the bottom. On by goes David Williams. And man, that's a really good illustration of how there's just not much speed difference here between the LMP2s and the GTPs. Eventually, Binkley also gets by, and I'm sure he's grateful for that, not getting held up down through the Le Mans chicane.
What kind of exit they get? David Williams nice and tidy through that bus stop chicane there. Kevin Binkley crucially only a half a second behind that 0-1. So here in iRacing, as long as you're kind of within that 1 second buffer, it kind of stretches a little bit further than that, but you're firmly within that slipstream, within that tow where you can kind of get pulled along on these big long straightaways.
Back down into one once again. Williams looking a lot more safe this time ahead of Kevin Binkley, but not completely clear of him quite yet. Trying to see, and a lot of our battles definitely fell apart during that pit cycle, it looks like. Not many drivers have managed to get closer together out here. And it's like we may have to wait to see what's going to be developing from here as we look a little farther back and down into the International Horseshoe. Paul Darling ahead of Josh Lane. Paul down 5 from the start, so he was on pole for this one, and unfortunately had a few issues at the beginning of this race as they go around the outside of Michael Marlowe there, just giving him plenty of space. Doesn't do Lane any favors, though.
I'm going to keep an eye on the gap between Darling and Binkley. It seems to be growing a little bit. It's up to 17, 18 seconds. But what I think Paul Darling is going to do here on his strategy is that he's stretched it, I'm looking 3 laps further than any of the other GTP cars that he's kind of racing right now. If he does that same thing here in this stint, it's going to set him up for an extremely short fuel fill in that final one.
It sure will. So the drivers have kind of made their bed. Now they got to lie in it, but we won't really find out for some time. Granted, if drivers wanted to short stint the second one, they could come in as early as about 40 minutes to go, but we're not quite there yet. We're just about to hit that halfway point as we see Lane and Islam go side by side. The teammates sharing 7th and 8th place down into the braking of turn 1, and Islam is unable to shake him from P7.
I'll try to get this right here because they're both painted the same. It's dark out, so it's tough to tell the difference, but Mo Islam is that second black and green car. Joshua Lane in the number 92 is the first black and green car leading the way right there. And actually, check this out. Nathan Dowd in the number 7. He has come up to be the caboose on this 3-car GTP train through the kink and now into the Western Horseshoe down here. Watch out, number 7, cue the Jaws music.
Yeah, and the more they mess around trying to go side by side into turn 1, the more that's going to help this black and white machine start to catch up to them as they work their way up onto the banking once more, down through NASCAR 1 and 2. Looks like they're a little too far apart at this stage, though. Don't think he's going to be able to do anything, although they are catching Alex Caruso in that LMP2 car. Really provide a bit of a buffer here. Lane's not able to get by. In fact, he's going to be held up slightly now.
Out of that bus stop chicane, and I've mentioned so many times it's all about the exit, and now we got a little bit of a draft battle as they're trying to work around that LMP2 car, and you're right, here we go. Mo Islam right on the back, and you see Joshua Lane actually tucked down right in front of the LMP2 car. He doesn't want to give any draft to his teammate.
As soon as he heard clear, he was down there. He was trying to cut him off from that slipstream as Dowd uses this as a great opportunity. In fact, he's right there with a much better exit than Mo Islam. He could sneak one up the inside into the International Horseshoe if he wants to try, and he does, but shutting the door, Islam will deny him for now. But you're right, the Jaws music is over. Now it is time for the crescendo because he's there.
Well, and watch out coming out of turn number 6. I don't see too much traffic in front of this 3-car battle, so it's all about nailing turn number 6. It's this next left-hander that goes back up onto the oval, so nothing really to pull you along. Mo Islam has his mirrors full of Nathan Dowd.
Coming down onto the banking once more, just past the GT car of Dean Kerr. Currently running down 17th overall in the GT cars right now. And as he allows those two to go through, looks like Dowd's got a pretty good run, but not enough straightaway as he's going to back out of it. Mo Islam able to pull away for a bit. Ooh, and one of the GT cars had to go off course a little. Sean Reese, I think, going to get a cut course penalty for that one, but at least he is not hit by these hustling GTPs. And Lane is now under serious threat. Here comes Mo Islam round the outside once again. Last time this happened, Nathan Dowd gained a ton of time. Is he going to get a chance now to finally make a pass here down into the braking? No, looks like Islam cannot make it through, but once again, he's slow off the corner, and Dowd is right there. Last time he didn't get it to stick. This time he's going to be forced to go around the outside.
Let's see if he can put the power down coming out of this first horseshoe. See what he can do, but you're right. Islam gets the power down nicely around a GT3 car. It's going to separate it out just a tiny little bit. Now into the Western Horseshoe, also known as Turn 5. And actually looks like Islam slips up just a little bit, allowing Dowd to close in. But I'm actually noticing both of these cars, specifically Dowd, really squirming around when he's trying to put the traction down to the ground.
I noticed that too. It seems like maybe they're heating these tires up early, which is not a good sign. Maybe they will take that short second stint here in a moment. But every time that Islam catches up to Lane, he tries for that pass, and it makes him vulnerable out of one. I'm surprised he hasn't learned yet, Joey.
It's all about where you make the pass, and sometimes it can check you up as we watch Paul Gibson go around David Schutt for second place overall. The Porsche continuing to stretch its legs further and further into this race. And I know that these two cars aren't painted the same, but they're kind of faux teammates, if you will, over there at PG-13.
Exactly. And Gibson, by the way, up 4 spots from the start, and Dornenberg as well. They've been having excellent races. I know track position doesn't mean everything here, but there you go. Yeah, started 6th up to second place, and have, I guess, just kept it on the island mostly.
He's very consistent in traffic. We talked about sometimes you can make a ton of time in traffic. You can also lose a bunch of time in traffic. And I would say that Paul Gibson, probably one of the more respectful drivers when it comes to getting through those slower classes of traffic. So I think early on in these Autobahn races, you naturally see him fall down through the field. But as soon as things start to clear up, he can kind of run his own pace. And now it's what you're seeing.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Good call on that one as they come up onto the banking. Here once again going around the outside of Mark Kudrowski. David Schutt still staying close to Gibson, trying to make sure that he doesn't completely scamper away. If something should happen in traffic or he has his own mistake, he could try and grab that second place back as long as he is within the draft.
And I know that both David and Paul are probably on the comms together trying to say, hey, let's go hunt down the lead of Dominic Dornenberg. And I know that Dominic actually does quite a bit of practice with these two as well. So I have a feeling, Joe, that if the lead does close up between these 3 GTP cars, it's going to get really good.
Starting to get good between 4th and 5th and the LMP2s as well. Fisher and Cast are split by almost nothing. Here it is right here on screen out of Le Mans, and that's Cast in the green and black machine chasing down Fisher, and he's got a very good run. Will he be able to make the move here coming into turn 1? So far we've seen some good defenses, but we've also seen some cars make some aggressive moves around the outside. He's not really gaining. He is going to take a big look, And no. Oh, well, maybe yes. Look at under braking. A lot more downforce, it seems, on the number 42 machine.
Yeah, but Fisher's able to scoot out of the exit, go through the turn 2S's, keep Robert Cast kind of at an arm's length distance. And if you've been watching Autobahn, I would say probably the last, handful of seasons, these two cars right here, this is classic Autobahn. Satellite racing versus composite racing. These are two powerhouse teams in this series.
Indeed. Have been around for quite some time as well. So they're going to be well familiar with one another, no doubt. Try to use every trick in the book that they can after having raced against each other's teams for season after season. I think David Williams and Binkley are in a side-by-side battle as well right now. And Williams had been passed by Binkley. Oh, Williams nearly just ran into the back of another car. That's going to lose him the spot right back. That was Ross Booth, fourth in the GT Pro category. Thankfully, did not actually hit him, but cost him maybe a little bit of time to the car ahead. Is that for position there? No, that's Franco Margarella, so that's not for position.
Those pesky GT3 cars just getting in the way again, but something, Kevin Binkley trying to catch up there right on the back, so he is trying to charge his way through the GT3 traffic, and if you're somebody like Ross Booth who's made up 20 positions so far, you also have to keep an eye in the mirror, not get taken out.
So back onto the banking once again. Booth has 7 seconds to make up to Wasilewski using this lapped car, I think, pretty well. He's getting a nice little pull off of the BMW there. So that's at least helping him at this stage. Could be helping him save fuel as well. And maybe that'll shorten his stop if he's going for that trick. Whoa! And coming off of the chicane. Very close moment once again between Binkley and Williams. And they're going to go side by side once more. This has been happening a lot in this race. I think we're seeing a bit of a rivalry start to brew.
Well, and crucially, Binkley left room to go 3 wide there on the exit of the bus stop. When you remember, David Williams, as he clears himself over the nose, didn't leave room with David Shutt earlier in that 3 wide moment. So I think that maybe the GTP cars are already learning from their mistakes. They're evolving, Joe. It's Skynet.
Other thing that's evolving is the sky. We're seeing just little hints of light start to appear, as it is just before 7 a.m. Virtual standard time right now. So it's pretty cool. But if the sun continues to rise and it's a clear day, we could see those temperatures start to rise on the track surface. A little bit of wind too, at about 12 miles an hour.
Reason why we're showing Paul Gibson right here in this yellow Porsche, he had a big-time moment in turn number 1, and maybe I shouldn't say a big-time moment, but remember, he had gone past David Shutt on the racetrack, and he just got in way too deep into one, ran way off the track. Thankfully, didn't get it in the grass, didn't come into contact with anybody, but I mentioned that brake-by-wire system. That might have caught him out right here.
All right, here it is. Gibson, whoa! And, well, he doesn't spin the car, though. I guess that's probably the lesser of two evils right there, is just let it run deep, gather it up, and then get back going.
Totally. He handled the situation properly. Just a shame because he had done all that hard work to try to get around second place, that number 5 of David Shutt, and now he's going to have to go back there, hunt down, I'm looking about a 2.5 second gap now between himself and that second place that he already had.
Yeah, not impossible, as we've seen, but definitely a frustration. And as he comes out through the kink once again, 2.2 seconds. Will it be traffic that gives it back, or is he going to have to try and do this one with raw pace? I'm also noticing, one of the things that happens when you have nearly 60 cars circulating for 90 minutes, Joey, there is a lot of marbles offline already.
Yes, and so let's go back and remember that incident with Paul Gibson. He didn't spin, he didn't go off into the grass, he didn't hit the contact of the wall at all, but you're right, it is so dirty off the track that if you drive out there and collect all those marbles, really just get them all over your tires, sometimes it can take a little while to basically clean everything up and get the grip going back in the machine. The other thing is, Let's say you got a car coming down the inside trying to make a pass on you and get shoved out wide off of the racing line. All of a sudden, the grip that you had is now gone.
That was Kevin Binkley still trying to hound David Williams. Every time David comes upon traffic, Kevin seems to really get the rub of the green and is suddenly close to him once again. But then now that they're in clear air, you can tell Williams still has very good speed. We don't know if he is suffering from any sort of loss of pace from the damage from earlier. He has already had a pit stop, and it wasn't terribly longer than typical at about 37 seconds. So if he did need repairs, he elected not to take them, as he's going to try and sneak inside of the car of Matt Gosh, and it looks like he's through.
As these GTPs continue to battle around through the kink, another battle that I was noticing, Robert Cast is still right on the back of the number 47 of Thomas Fisher there for the fourth place in LMP2. So going to have to keep an eye on this one as it develops. Go out of turn number 3 on the oval, around turn 4, and that is Robert Cast in that number 42 chasing the 47 of Thomas Fisher.
He's got a nice pull on him, but I saw before that it seems like Cast is able to break a whole lot deeper. So I'm getting the sense that Rob has put a little bit more wing into this thing, and that might be hurting his chances at trying to overtake. That's Ooms. And that means Kundinger's now our leader. Ooms was our leader before, wasn't he?
I believe so. He was starting to run away with it. And you know what? This is actually contact from a GT3 car. This is Ryan Robertson from P5 in GT3. It's not necessarily Ryan Robertson's fault, but Joe, check out the replay. Jeff Ooms goes down underneath here in the first horseshoe and just doesn't get on the gas soon enough.
Yeah, it was following so close behind him that the tiniest little nudge, and he was off and around. So another angle on it here. Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't put too much blame on him. You'd expect that car to get going when you get on the throttle. Maybe it's just the slight difference between the classes on acceleration.
And if I was to guess, Joe, I bet you Ooms got on the gas. It had a little bit of a wiggle moment, so he had to hesitate, and I bet you that's when Robertson got into the back of him. You're right. I don't think it was malicious, especially knowing Ryan Robertson. He's one of the cleanest racers out there.
Yeah, usually very highly respected by everybody out in this series. Is down towards the tri-oval. Ooms now has to make up about 5.5 seconds to catch up to Carter. But I don't think Carter's going to give that one up easily. And on top of it, he's got cars side by side, including Robertson, who had tipped him around earlier.
It's busy. Doesn't matter if there was 90 minutes or only 32 minutes left in this race. Joe, I don't think the busyness is going to go away at all. We just have to embrace it.
And Robertson gave a little bit more leeway this time. Oh, my goodness there. Eddie Layton was trying to get through there, and right as Robertson pulled off to the side, he had put his car there, so that caused a big checkup, unfortunately. And now Robertson has a battle with Floyd Kerr and another car behind. No, excuse me, that is a prototype. That's Alex Caruso. So Caruso should be able to get through, but this is the battle now for 5th position in GT Pro.
BMW versus BMW. Out here, kind of curious on that one. I'm actually looking through the GT3 field. Porsche, BMW, Porsche, BMW. That is your top 6. I've got to go all the way down to, I think, 12th place to find our first Lamborghini, and then all the way down to 17th to find the first Ferrari. So I know that typically how iRacing works in the sim is you find which car is the fastest. All right, that's going to give you your best chance at winning. If the fastest isn't the one that suits your driving style the best, find the most comfortable out there. But certainly looks like right now, Porsche, BMW, you want to be in one of those two.
Coming down to the tri-oval. This is a good run from Kerr. Will he try and pass Robertson? Ryan's not even going to defend. He's going to leave the inside open down into turn 1. Brakes as deep as he can, but eventually he has to give it up. And yeah, the interesting thing about finding the fastest car, well, I believe usually most seasons they only allow drivers to switch once over the course of the season to keep people from just continually hopping into the fastest car.
Correct. Yes, they do have rules to prevent that, and it's great to see that Autobahn goes to those lengths to try to prevent people from hopping around. But usually, the car kind of stays the same, and there's always the old saying, "horses for courses" out there. But here in iRacing, it tends to stay pretty similar.
Look at that beautiful sunrise. And not only are we seeing a beautiful new view of the outside, we've got a beautiful new face in here. Michael Johnson is joining us for the last half hour of this race. Michael, you've definitely missed a lot of excitement and franticness, but I think that goes without saying for most Autobahn races.
And most races, honestly, at Daytona, there's always excitement at Daytona. Anything can happen in this race. I mean, I have seen everything here in real life and in the sim. So I love Daytona for races because it brings absolutely everything.
And it's certainly brought us a lot of variety today. We've seen all different types of incidents, passes, and strategies. Speaking of which, Lee Peterson is in at almost exactly the half-hour mark. So looks like he's going to try and play it simple on the pit strategy. And I believe, yes, he is the first of the GTPs to take his second stop.
And to talk on that pit stop strategy real fast, we are at that window for the GTPs. It was right about lap 20 to 23 is when they were pitting before, and I'm seeing Dominic Dornenberg lap 20 right now. Paul Gibson only on lap 18, so there's going to be a little bit of a fluctuation, but the window is open.
This is the battle for ninth in the LMP2s here. Vance Bow versus, Bennett, who is unfortunately putting the elbows to Justin Rector. And eventually he gets through. Thankfully, nobody lost time by that one, but looked like they certainly got a little bit of a rude shove there for a moment. Bennett now still trying to stay with Vance Bow, the number 90, through the infield.
So something that I've been noticing, because Brian Bennett is another stalwart here in the Autobahn series. Paul Darling, we mentioned him earlier, but I'm seeing a lot of these previous GT3 drivers make the step up into the prototype class. And Joe, you as well as I know that here in Autobahn, that's a totally different version of racing from looking in your mirrors to now being the attacking car. It's pretty cool to see them kind of change classes around a little bit.
Absolutely. And that's part of that versatility I was talking about, getting someone who's good at the opening that you need filled. And worth mentioning that part of the way that they have to do that and how they form these teams is they have a license system in this series that is based mostly on iRating. And it's very similar to real life sports cars where you have platinum, gold, silver, and bronze. And you can only have so many of each license level on your team. And in the case of the AM versus the Pro GT cars, where you sit on that license level will determine what championship you race in there.
And I'll try to explain this the best way that I can, right? Here in Autobahn, there's 4 classes of cars for each team. There's 4 drivers, all right? That makes sense. However, there is only 1 prototype car per team, and then it can kind of be shaken up on, do you want 2 LMP2 drivers versus 2 GT drivers? So there is a little bit of flexibility there, Joe, but you have to be represented across all 3 of the classes.
Exactly. By the way, that was Williams and Schutt that we saw in pit lane taking their service. Schutt exits first since he was in first, waiting for Williams to finish up here. And Williams has a black flag. And in fact, yes, he's been in the pits long. I wonder if he sped into pit lane.
A very common mistake. And actually, Michael, I want to talk to you about that. How easy is it to miss your braking marker going into pit lane here at Daytona?
It's almost like you've been the car in front of me when I miss my braking marker going into the pit lane. Yeah, it's real easy. You're flying around this oval section of this course, and when you come around there, you've been out on the track for so long and you're somewhat desensitized. You hit that 50 mile per hour or 55 mile per hour speed limit, and it feels like you're walking. So yeah, it's really easy with as fast as you come in off of the oval section.
Dornenberg now pitting. That's our leader in the GTPs. So he's hopefully going to be able to emerge in the top spot. But Binkley has not pitted yet, so he'll take over the lead right now. Looks like Paul Darling likewise will stay out on track, as will Josh Lane. But Dornenberg taking his service, and I'm not seeing a black flag, so he hit the pit speed limiter at the right time. Should be back out and rolling soon.
I'd keep an eye on that 31 of Paul Gibson as well, but it looks like Dominic Dornberg is actually going to be able to cover him off quite easily. I was noticing that Paul Gibson had a pretty short time there in the pits, but unfortunately, something else might have happened to that 31 at some point.
All right, Dornenberg running back in 7th. Highest driver to have taken his second stop. Looks like David Schutt will emerge about 7 seconds behind him. So definitely still some work to do. Not impossible to make up in about 24 minutes, but he's going to have to hustle and make some fast moves through some of the traffic. As here is Gibson, also done with his 2 stops and back out running in 10th.
I'm trying to figure out exactly what happened here to Paul Gibson, because if you remember, he was only a handful of seconds behind Dominic Dornenberg and only a few seconds behind David Schutt. And I'm looking at his pit stop time, 29.8 seconds. And for some reason, he's definitely lost a chunk of track position somewhere.
So this was 5 laps ago. We're going to see, a car off to the side. He reacts and spins it. Does he hit anything? Oh, he just about did. And it almost, I thought for a second maybe he had beached it on the edge of the track.
Yeah, he almost got caught for another really bad rejoin, but thankfully was heads up on those cars. But I mean, that's a tough break, especially so late in the race.
Really is. Had a change for 5th place, Mo Islam over Dawson Brock up in the GTPs. And there you can see leading that blue, white, and black machine. That's Brock in that number 22. That's Islam in the 860 just in front of him. Caruso in the LMP2s, not racing in the same class. He's going to hold off to the side. He's got to run his own race. He can't disappear, but he doesn't want to hold these 2 up, and he's going to allow them politely through.
Through the Western Horseshoe. Now try to put the power down this short little chute of a straightaway, and hard on the brakes once again for turn number 6, and then is all about the exit. Get your foot to the floor and commit to it, because that's what gets you the top speed down the drafting straightaway.
Ooh, Jeffrey Ooms in the LMP2s just pit. Formerly was leading this race until he had a problem coming off of the corner, getting pushed around by a GT car. Kundinger continues on, hasn't taken his second stop. Could this be what Ooms needs, just doing something alternate, hoping that he can maybe try and get back into the fray?
I'm really curious to see how these drivers are going to play this last pit stop, and who has saved fuel, who's going to try to short fill it and kind of squirt their way to the finish line. But gosh, look at how long pit lane is here at Daytona. It's just excruciating now before you get to the pit lane cones.
Exactly. It's all the way right there. Yeah, now he's able to finally accelerate away. It used to be that you could try and zip your way through that little exit lane, but you could sometimes wind up hitting the wall. By the way, we saw Binkley taking his pit stop earlier, so he's going to hand over the lead now to Paul Darling, who still needs to take a stop. Brock also carries on. Dornenberg has been promoted back up into 3rd.
Watch Ooms as he goes around, and I believe this is Binkley coming out of pit lane here. See where he's going to feed back out in the rest of these GTP cars. Looks like he's about 7 seconds behind David Schutt. Dominic Dornenberg, I still think, will be our overall leader once everything comes to a cycle, but I've got my eye on the number 55. I don't think he's going to really jump up too far, Joe, but Paul Darling is the furthest GTP car forward that can basically short fill it the most.
Now I'm checking to see if Dornenberg has managed to have a win before, and I do not see him on the winners list. This might be his first ever win in his Autobahn career, and he's been around for a while now, so this has been a long time coming for him. So he's just got to keep it together. It's easier said than done, and those who haven't watched the Autobahn races before, be ready, because even if it seems calm now, the endings almost inevitably start to go crazy.
Well, to talk about Dornenberg out front, I know that he has really stepped up his sim racing game, especially in the last couple years. He's doing a lot more with the composite racing team. They've really spread out through various different leagues. They do a ton of practices together. So I think that Dominic Dornenberg, his practice is definitely paying off. He's putting in the time, and you're seeing the results.
Up and around the banking once again, as I believe we're following Dowd here. So Nathan's still in ninth, behind Lane by about 1.5 seconds. They've just taken their pit stop, so they're good to go to the finish. 20 minutes left, and we need roughly what looks like about half the field still needing to take their stops.
Yeah, it looks like Dowd and Lane came out right at the same time. And I think Lane has opened up a good bit. They were pretty much nose to tail through the infield, but a little bit of wheel spin from Dowd, I think, coming out onto the oval caused a bit more of a gap than he was expecting. And Lane's trying to drive away with that mistake.
Another first-time winner we're going to have is Young Park. He's never taken a victory and going to take it in the GT Pros, which honestly I think is even more impressive, if anything, because often we'll see the GT classes in Autobahn kind of dominated by one person. It's usually extremely tough to take a win, especially in the Pro class.
Usually it's Ross Booth or Ryan Wasilewski. Those two are huge names, but Young Park has been around for a long time. And just like Dominic Dornenberg, he's really stepped up his game as well. Here in the Porsche has been leading the GT3 class really the entire race. He's had Michael Marlowe, his teammate, in tow, who's been able to stretch it just a little bit further. But he's done a fantastic job out there at leading, taking command of the GT3 race.
Down into his stall here goes Cameron Bidwell, currently fourth. And his last stop should be now out of the way. Going to hand over a few spots to cars that have already stopped, Park being one of them, Wasilewski is as well. But curious to see where he's going to emerge, as we got a battle for fifth down in GTPs. This is Layton over Gibson. Eddie Layton up 10 spots, but he still owes us a pit stop.
You're right, he does. And I have a feeling he's got to come this lap. Paul Gibson should be able to get around him, and I would keep an eye once again on that 31, because I'm seeing Kevin Binkley. He's only about 2 seconds up the road, and it was Paul Gibson that was making those mistakes, or I shouldn't say making the mistakes, but getting caught out on the racetrack earlier.
Surely he's going to be fired up to try and not only take Layton, but Binkley as well then, since he was so close before. Layton just got on the radio. Not sure if that was him trying to talk to Gibson to work together, or is he just communicating with Ross Booth there, let him know he's coming along. He's letting him know he's pitting. So it was communication. And down into the lane, Layton now takes his service just behind Dean Kerr, who takes his last stop, which means that is everybody in the GTPs, and Dornenberg has emerged your leader.
I mentioned how crazy fast the GTP cars are. Well, I actually looked at the speeds going into turn one here, Joe. I saw 202 miles an hour, and we're close to 90 minutes into this race. That's the type of speeds those cars carry.
Really impressive. It's got to be frighteningly fast, but these drivers now heading down through the banking. I do love all the little niceties that iRacing have been adding. You can now see them actually shift as the fingers move on the wheel. Not only can you see it through the number on the wheel, but watching the body do its work, the virtual body, as he sides through the Le Mans chicane and back out once again. Dornenberg, about 5 seconds ahead of David Shutt. He's not out of the woods, but right now he can see the finish line.
It's about 190 miles an hour as he entered the bus stop, about 125 miles an hour minimum speed through there. I'm looking right up against the limiter, 199 miles an hour before he jumps on the brakes down into turn one, and all the way down. turn one, it's pretty sharp. 88 miles an hour is what I saw for minimum speed there.
Wow. Just unbelievable stuff. I mean, this feels like IndyCar speeds that these things are now starting to reach and capable of. Looks like sixth place down in the LMP2s between Chris Pies and Robert Tinsley. Now, there are two names that used to be fighting for wins, but for now, they're outside the top 5 even.
Yeah, but Chris Pie's done a terrific job. Robert Tinsley, I'm sure, is loving the battle late in the race right now. Actually gives a little bit of a lockup. Yeah, Michael, you know how important that is to hit the brake marker there into the turn 3 hairpin.
I do. I was watching the traffic as he came up there, and I think what happened there is Robert was focused on his pass where Chris was watching the GT car in front of him. So Chris reacted to that GT car, but his positioning didn't allow Robert to see it, and that caught Robert out. So he was a little bit late on the brakes, ends up finding his way with that John Deere award today.
And now he's a whole 7 seconds behind Chris Pies. That's going to be a lot harder for him to actually make a pass now. Pies will certainly appreciate that. You can maybe catch Robert Cast in front of him in these last 15 minutes if he's got the pace out there. And as we said, Pies has been climbing from the back of the LMP2 field for quite some time. Now, we were talking about Gibson and Binkley. Well, that one is also together, and it looks like it's going to be a very short story.
Binkley actually got the short end of the stick. He really got checked up by a GT3 car. Let's see how deep he takes it. Yeah, really defensive into one, and now Gibson is too deep around the outside. Leave the third to the 75 of Binkley.
Well, proving me wrong. I thought Binkley was going to be overtaken with the speed that we saw out of Paul there, but no, he is denied. They've got some more traffic in front of them. This is Ed Eisenring. He'll get out of the way in a good spot so they can get by now. But where else could he potentially use it to his advantage? They got more GT cars coming. Justin Rector up in front of them. Mark Kudrowski nearby. So they're going to have a few chances.
And they're pretty close. You got to realize we're getting into the point now where the draft makes a difference as soon as we come out here. But the thing to remember is it's not just drafting the same car. You've got plenty of GT cars out there dodging in and out of that draft line. You can keep that lead on the car behind you.
Yeah, we saw that from Gibson right there. He was trying to pull a little bit of a toe off of Justin Rector there. And down into Le Mans once again. They're starting to approach Alex Caruso. This is also lap traffic, but very different, although they're going to get him at a fantastic spot, as Alex just has to remain at the bottom. And once again, a big toe for Paul Gibson, who gets a little help from the slower cars.
And it's going to keep him in touch with Kevin Binkley here. Not nearly as close going into turn number 1. Isn't going to be able to make a charge at all. But with 12 minutes remaining, Kevin Binkley is going to have to keep his eyes on that rearview mirror.
I like Binkley's tactic right there. That was actually a really good move. When he went around that slower, that LMP2 car, he just dodged right back down and gave a little bit of a toe to make it even harder for Gibson to be able to try to catch up with him there. And I think it paid off in spades.
They go by more GT cars, one of them in the wall and has to take a tow. Bidwell suddenly finds himself back in pit lane prematurely. And it must have been a pretty hard hit if he couldn't drive it back.
That's a shame because Bidwell was doing so well earlier in this race. He had really kind of stayed in that top 5, top 7 position. And and that's a common point there, Joe. Going through the kink, if you get out wide or if you have any sort of loose condition. I wonder if there was actually any contact that put him out there.
Could have been slight contact or maybe just some ghost contact that upset the car enough at a very fast portion of the track. Let's watch the hands. No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I don't think there was any contact. I just think that if I could point out something with the GTP car on the inside, it could have been out more on that non-rubbered up, the marbled line out there where there's no grip.
Gibson's got a good run, but I think he's a little too far back. He knows it too. He's going to back out. Oh, getting into the car ahead. He lets his competitor just hang himself as Binkley will pound into the rear bumper of Floyd Kerr and give up a spot.
Just a shame. I don't think that Binkley was expecting the BMW to be so far off pace. And really, the BMW was letting him by. I just think that Binkley, like you said, got in too deep and then got caught out by it.
A term I don't think we use enough is this battle for 8th also getting pretty hot down here in the LMP2s. And as they manage to go side by side, they'll get it single file by the time they get to the International Horseshoe. But Joey, obviously something that you wouldn't think of in a series that is just so fast-paced, but patience for moments like that paid off for Paul.
Absolutely. You have to look at the big picture, no matter where you are in the race. And I want to go back to what I said way earlier. Remember, Paul Gibson is very patient in traffic, and I think it actually cost him some time in these Autobahn races. But right there, it ended up paying to the positive.
So Paul's now into 3rd, but he's 11 seconds behind David Schutt. I think he's lost too much time to hope to get any higher than that, unfortunately. So he'll have to stay put and wait where he is as we continue to watch, I believe, Dawson Brock here coming down into the Horseshoe. This is actually GTP cars, not LMP2s, excuse me, that we were watching in this battle between himself and Mo Islam. Dawson, very familiar, at least for me, up here in the booth. I don't think you guys got to work with him nearly as much. A young guy who's soft-spoken, but lets his racing do the talking.
Been locked in this battle with Mo Islam, and Mo's been kind of all over the back of the rear wing, and now he's going to take a look down to the inside of turn 1. But you're right, Dawson Brock is able to cover him off, and this has been relentless, Joe. I've been kind of keeping my one eye on this, one eye on the overall lead, and this has been going on for about 5 laps now.
Dawson up 5, where he started from 13th. Going to try and stay off to the side of Sean Reese. Makes good use of that. Just ahead of them, that is Robert Cast as well. Oof, that was some real trust there in Kudrowski that he was going to hold to the left-hand side as he positioned his car off into the braking zone of the Western Horseshoe, but it worked out in the end. Now Cast's going to be a different story here a little bit.
Out of turn number 6. Put the power down, try to get the drive down the long straightaway around the oval, turn number 3. And there you see the difference in speed between the GTPs and the LMP2s. You were mentioning earlier, not a ton, but enough to kind of crawl by them on the straight line.
And I think he did help Mo, because I think that was another one of those composite teams out there just working together. Make sure that he doesn't hold him up so he can get a chance to try and take that 8th place back. Every point is important, especially in that team's championship where so much can go awry. There's a lot of swings and roundabouts that can happen over the course of a season in this series. Flashing lights at the lap traffic of Margarella, just letting him know that he's coming along and he's coming through, although he tries to get underneath Dean Kerr. And wasn't Kerr? Yeah, Kerr was the one that got hit earlier. This time, a little bit more contact with Mo Islam, but he's going to eventually sneak by.
Really kind of squeezed those prototype cars coming out of the turn number 2 S's, but thankfully both of them were able to get by. No harm, no foul, even though it was a little bit of a tense moment.
This is definitely looking like more of your typical Autobahn race, but not like your typical Autobahn Daytona race. I'm very proud of how the drivers have handled this one. There's been some hiccups out there, as we've seen, but not nearly the unbelievable amount of carnage that can sometimes happen in seasons past. They've done a fantastic job preparing these drivers on the lead up to this season opener, and coming out of the Western Horseshoe here and now on to the oval. This is P9 in the LMP class. This is Bennett versus Bow.
Bow has been on the back end of Bennett here, and that's the red and white car. Don't be confused by that GTP car going around the outside. Vance Bow is this, I would call it maybe a camouflage scheme. What do you call that, Joe? Is that a digital camo?
I'd have to get a closer look. I know there are lights here, but it is a little bit dimmer, so
It's like one of these schemes that they put on one of the auto manufacturers, like the new cars, to try to disguise what it is, you know?
You know what I think it is? I think that's the Van Halen guitar.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I don't have my rocker hair and my mustache anymore.
That makes you forget it instantly, right? That's how it works.
Sometimes that's how a commentator's brain works.
Exactly. All right. Oh, look at this traffic down into the corner, and Vance was trying his darndest down to the inside of Bennett. No dice, though, and Rector's going to just kind of try and get himself as well out of the way as he can go. He doesn't want any part of this craziness as they exit off of the International Horseshoe. They'll eventually get by. Great job by everybody in that situation. That was crazy looking down into turn one.
I want to give props to Brian Bennett. I know that he took a big break from iRacing, wasn't doing too much of the league stuff anymore, but he's really becoming more and more back involved in the sim racing community. And I know he always liked his Porsches, but it's good to see him out here in the LMP2 cars back in his familiar Autobahn racing ground.
Yep, another one of those drivers with a lot of starts in this series. I'll have to check because we actually do have that stat, I believe, on our sheet for the number of starts as we come onto the backstretch once again. And here we go, another side-by-side moment down into the bus stop. And they're going to get that one sorted out eventually as Eddie Layton is able to get by.
Vance Bow is still on the tire tracks right in the draft, and I wonder if he's close enough. I think that by the time they get to the start-finish line, he'll be right up along the rear axle here of Brian Bennett. So, see, does he keep going to the driver's right as he cut back to driver's left at the last minute, trying to go around the outside? Gets all the way around. Now he's way loose. He's going to have to save it. He's not going to be able to make the pass this time.
So it looks like 22 starts total, I believe, for Brian Bennett. So he's got about 2 seasons worth here of races in Autobahn. And through the kink, he is going to stay ahead now of Vance Bow with a little bit more wiggle room. We're down to 3 minutes left to go. Where is Dornenberg? Looks like just in the infield, so that might actually be 2 laps left or 3.
With 2.5 minutes left, let's see exactly where he's at, coming through the Western Horseshoe. Joe, he should have 1 more to go when he crosses the stripe this time.
Oh, and side by side again, Bennett and Haley. Bow no longer in the fight. Now it's between 8th and 9th position. Haley up ahead, shuts the door as he goes back to the racing line. But here is Margarella in front of him. Can he time it right not to be held up? It's going to move off to the right-hand side. Looks like it works out.
Yeah, but crucially, it is Bow chasing Bennett, chasing Haley. This is all 3 for positions, and you're seeing Vance Bow in the red car already trying to look around driver's right, but that's the long way around. Brian Bennett's going to continue to get towed by Bradley Haley, but this is going to put Vance Bow in a good position for a late break move.
Could at least get one of them. No, up around the outside for Bennett. That leaves the door open, and he loses a position instead. 2 laps to go. Dornenberg just crossed the line as this battle rages on in front of him.
I just squeaked by. You're right. My math was wrong, but here we go. Vance Bow now trying to get around Bradley Haley. He was just playing defense. Now he's switched courts. He's on the offense.
They've got to hustle. Time is running out. Something's got to give here, and someone is going to come out ahead of this 3-way battle for 8th place right now. Weaving back and forth. Look at Vance Bow. He's hungry for this.
Trying to get a little bit of an over-under, but doesn't put the power down quite as nicely as he wants to. All 3 of these cars equidistant as they come out of turn number 6, but I actually think the number 90 of Vance Bow is running a slightly lower downforce setting than these other 2 cars. Look at how much he's able to close it up.
It's giving him an advantage. It's making life a hassle for the Comet. And he definitely covers off this time. He doesn't even go back to the racing line as we see the sparks fly off the bottom of the car as he clatters over the curbs.
We've seen each and every time one of these LMP2 cars tries to go around the outside of turn one, they just can't maintain the grip. Can Vance Bow make the move work? He's going out to the driver's right. They've got a GT3 car right in front of them. Looks like they're both going to go to driver's right. Can Vance Bow go around the outside?
It gave him some space. I thought maybe he was going to try to pinch him off there a little bit, but looks like nothing doing. And Haley will stay ahead as Dornenberg behind has taken the white flag. 1 lap to go as the sun gleams across the pavement.
The Sherbert Hour here at Daytona, and Dominic Dornenberg, ever since he got in front after that pit stop, has really controlled this race. All he's got to do is keep it in check for about another 3 miles.
So close to the finish now. I've been here at this hour at Daytona. It is gorgeous out here at this time. A little chilly, at least around this time. Not too bad, but nothing us Midwesterners can't handle easily. Down in Florida, off the corner, finds his way safely around the outside of Robertson.
I really can't say enough about this effort from Dominic. He does a ton of sim racing. He's really been involved with this composite racing team. He takes it very seriously, especially this Autobahn effort. They brought 3 different teams here this season. And to start off this way, I bet you Dominic is going to be fist pumping inside this car.
No doubt. He's got to be smiling ear to ear. Just the final corner to go around the banking. Practically a straightaway as we got a car stopped, I think waiting maybe out of fuel, letting him go by. Dornenberg is going to take his first ever Autobahn win.
Congratulations to that 913. Looks like David Schutt will come home in second place, and this is the GT3 leader. I believe this is the GT3 AM leader coming out of turn number 4.
Mark Kudrowski, we haven't talked about him a lot, but he's been holding on to this AM lead for pretty much the whole race, and he's going to take the opening salvo for GTD AM.
And then this is the LMP2 leader. This is Carter Kundinger. Remember, it was his teammate Jeffrey Ooms that had the slight issue earlier. Carter Kundinger kept it on the racetrack. He's going to claim the checkered flag. Composite racing, both on top of GTP and LMP2.
And finally, Young Park. He's been trying for a bit now. He's wanted that opening win, and it looks like he's finally gonna get it. The number 77 brings it around out of NASCAR 3 and 4 and wins in GTD Pro here today in Autobahn Season 13, Round 1. What an excellent job there from Young Park. So, I believe that's pretty much the last of the field coming through. They have all more or less crossed the line at this stage as our winner parks it in the infield to soak in that victory, and others flashing their lights in celebration from the win. So let's go through our results after a hectic race and an exhausting first 90 minutes here as Dominic Dornenberg takes the win over David Schutt, who took second, about 6 seconds behind. Paul Gibson with a third. He did climb 3 spots, so while it looked like he had pace for maybe a little bit more, I'm sure he'll be happy with a podium. Binkley was 4th behind him. Darling won't be happy with 5th. He put that thing on pole, and then the race fell apart for him. Josh Lane was P6 as Nathan Dowd finished 7th and Dawson Brock 8th. Mo Islam was P9. David Williams started on the front row, finished in 10th. Going to be frustrated. Leif Peterson was 11th, followed by Eddie Layton in 12th. And the last driver to finish in the GTPs was Jimbo Pfeiffer, a lap down. It was DNFs for Billy Smith and Eric Thomas. Joey, what about the LMP2s?
It was that other composite racing team member, Carter Kundinger, taking home the win. 14th overall, actually, first in the LMP2 class. Jeffrey Ooms is going to round out second with Alex Caruso in your LMP2 podium. Thomas Fisher is going to finish 4th. Robert Cass with the top 5 finish. Christopher Pies, your biggest mover within that LMP2 class, up 10 positions, starting 16th, finishing 6th. Robert Tinsey, 7th. Vance Bow, 8th. Bradley Haley finishing 9th. Brian Bennett in that battle that we were covering finishes 10th. Corey Ensing, 11th. Andrew Lunsford in 12th, and Zach Ginn in 13th in the LMP2s. Unfortunately, Paul Slavonic, Matt Brewer, Adam Satterfield, and Joshua Wolf did not finish in class.
Young Park wins in the GTD class with Ross Booth finishing second behind him. Ryan Washaleski was P3. Marlowe slipped off the podium in the end. He was up as high as second for much of it. Ryan Robertson finished behind him in fifth, followed by Floyd Kerr in sixth. Winner in the GT AMs, Mark Kudrowski, seventh overall. Justin Rector was eighth overall in GT. But is in the GT Pros at Eisenring, second in GT AM, third and final step on the podium of the AMs goes to Shane Hunter. 11th of all GTs was William Brennan. Then it's Tom Hammond in 12th and Jason Iverson in 13th. 14th goes to Dale Green, Matthew Gosh 15th, and Trent Brown 16th. As Dean Kerr unfortunately ran into some trouble. Bidwell did as well towards the end, and you get down into the DNFs from here on out amongst those GT cars. Looks like we've got our winner ready to talk to us. Dominic Dornenberg finally getting that W he's been looking for in Autobahn, and he did it in the first race of the season. I'm sure he is chuffed with himself. Dominic, congratulations. You finally get your win. Does it feel extra special coming at Daytona as well?
Yeah, thank you guys. When I started practice a couple of weeks ago and even earlier today, I would have called anyone crazy that said that I was going to be fighting for a podium, let alone for the win. No, mega race. The whole team really came together here. Big effort from everyone on our side to get the setups going, and it really showed in the results for every one of our drivers.
So you gritted up fifth. The race starts, and early on, the leaders tangle. What's going through your mind when you see that happen?
It's Daytona, isn't it? You know, you come into turn one really fast, and everyone's already ready to go. We've been waiting all summer to get back to racing. I just got to tell myself that I got to keep it clean, keep it calm, don't spin the tires, and your chance will come.
Well, now that we've kicked things off and you get ready for heading off to Sebring, another really important one to sports car fans, can you keep up this momentum? Can you try and take home a trophy there as well?
I sure hope so. I'm really enjoying the GTP category with the new cars as well. It makes for great racing. I think the three classes here today really came through. I hope it looked good on broadcast because it was a lot of fun out there. So I'm really looking forward to Sebring. It's a great track. It should produce some really good racing, and hopefully we can bring home another trophy.
Well, again, I can't congratulate you enough. You've been around for quite some time, so I know you've been working hard towards this. So go soak it in, sir.
Thank you very much, guys.
Dominic Dornenberg in the 913 GTP Cadillac taking the win in that class ahead of Carter Kundinger, who was the winner over in the LMP2s, and Joey has caught up with him.
Carter Kundinger, congratulations on the opening round win, LMP2 class winner here at Daytona.
Dude, it feels so good. Daytona has never been one of my stronger tracks, and honestly, it's just so nice, especially to start out the season with a win. I couldn't have asked for that to go any better in my way.
How happy is your composite racing team Discord right now? Because it seems like with Dominic on top, you winning LMP2, I see Young Park down there, Ross Booth was on the podium. Seems like you guys had a pretty good day.
I'd say we were pretty good, yeah. Huge shout out to Dom and Young getting their first wins here in Autobahn. That's awesome for them, and I know both of them put in a ton of work just to, developing their skills and being prepared for this race. So it will definitely be a very mixed emotioned team. It also doesn't really help when we have, about 15 drivers, but hey, that's the fun of it though. All 15 of us can come together at one time, and hopefully, right? I mean, hopefully the wins keep coming because we have so many cars. But yeah, no, it's definitely going to be, I think there'll be a bunch of us that will be super happy, and I think everyone else will just be happy for us as well.
You had a few different phases of tonight's race. Early on, it seemed like you were chasing Jeffrey Ooms, and then for a period, you had Caruso right on your rear wing. Then you found yourself in the lead after Ooms made a mistake. What would you say was the most difficult part of tonight's race?
Yeah, I mean, really, it was just keeping up with Ooms. I know he's a very talented driver, and all I needed to do was just stay with him. And after I lost the draft, yeah, oh god, just a couple laps in, I was pretty devastated. And like I knew he was just going to be able to pull away. And yeah, I mean, it was just super unfortunate for him. Um, with the incident. And I mean, I guess for me, sometimes the ball just kind of falls in your court and you just got to take advantage of that. So, I mean, overall, it was just a super consistent drive for me. I mean, I can only remember like two little mistakes I had, which would have been just, not hitting my line or doing traffic wrong. But other than that, a super consistent race, super quick race for me. Yeah, we'll see what happens the rest of this season here. We got 12 more rounds, and hopefully to some tracks where I'm pretty good at, and we'll definitely be going to some tracks that I know I'm not too shabby at or not too good at. So we'll see. Just got to keep the consistency up this season. That's really the goal.
Well, Carter, thank you for all of the work you really do in running this Autobahn League. For anybody out there listening, Carter Kundinger is the man behind the entire series. So thank you for all of the effort, and congratulations on your win tonight.
Yeah, thank you guys. No, I appreciate everyone that signed up for the Autobahn season 13 here. I appreciate everyone at Composite Performance, as well as our sponsors SimLab and Grid. Yeah, and just thank you guys. We'll have you guys for another season here, and we're super ecstatic that that's the case. So we will definitely see you guys in 3 weeks at Sebring.
That was the driver of the 02, Carter Kundinger, claiming a checkered flag.
And lastly, we have the winner in the GTD category, Young Park, 36 tries. And on the 37th attempt, Young, you finally get your first win. Were you surprised it happened in the GTD Pro class?
Yeah, kind of. The Daytona is somewhere I'm particularly bad at usually, and so for some reason this time around, I found my pace. So it's really fitting that this was my first Autobahn win at Daytona.
It does seem like the composite team has brought a veritable army this season. Are you guys all really pooling resources? Because it seems like you have a lot of fast drivers out there.
Yeah, absolutely. We've recruited quite a bit, but I really got to give credit specifically to Ross Booth. He's kind of the GT program leader, and he's taught me a whole bunch, and definitely wouldn't have won today without his help.
And it's not just that, but you started it on pole on top of it. I mean, it looked, you said you were surprised, but it looked like you were strong from beginning to end.
Yeah, I mean, just this round at Daytona, somehow I just found some pace, found the things I've been doing wrong, and yeah, it was actually pretty easy this time.
Well, that's the best thing you could ask for is an easy win. But Young, congratulations! You're now part of the winner's circle in the stats of Autobahn history. Go enjoy yourself.
Hey, thanks so much, guys.
Young Park in the number 77, taking the win in GTD, which is going to wrap us up. A big thank you to Autobahn as well for bringing us back for another season of coverage of this wonderful series, as well as thank you to the team today, Joey, Michael, and Zach. Next race going to be October 23rd. That'll be Sebring at 9 p.m. Eastern. That one will be kicking off. Until next time, though, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.